David says he has definite proof of God and problems with the view of atheists. David, thanks for calling in to straighten us out. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Kenneth and Matt. How are you doing?
Great. Let's hear that definite proof of God.
Well, I do have definite proof of God, and I've spoken to both of you before and have never been able to give this proof.
So give it.
The problem I'm having, is that you guys claim, well, you make appeals to authority. I'm glad that Nathaniel brought that up, that somehow I am not qualified to give any evidence of God.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you give the proof instead of
whining about the last time?
Yeah, the other stuff. Just give the proof, man.
Okay, as long as you guys don't say I'm not qualified, I'm good.
Well, I mean, listen, proof is proof. Just give the proof.
Okay, so
right.
Excuse me. So I have no degrees in science. Okay, so according to some people, I'm not qualified to give any.
Could you just
we don't care.
Just get to the argument. Yeah. Stop whining about the past and preambling about all kinds of stuff. Just get to the argument. If you have definitive proof for God, there should be absolutely nothing we'll be able to say about it. So just give it.
I don't have a degree in science either. It doesn't matter.
Okay, well, no, if you guys would just let me speak. Okay.
Holy shit. We've asked you to speak 2 times already. Stop with the preamble. Stop with the whining. Get with the proof or go away.
Yeah, just give it, man.
Okay, I don't know if people are going to understand it. That's
Stop with your preamble. When I stop talking, David, start with your proof. One more interruption about, I don't know this, and people will think this, and what about this? Just go with the damn proof now.
Okay. The cosmology of David gives the definitive proof by the claim, and the Big Bang Theory, by the claim of expansion of the cosmos. Okay. That is the definitive proof of matter or the cosmos expanding into an invisible realm.
Okay. So just to make sure that I'm following you, what you've said so far is that the expansion of matter is proof of God?
Or of space. Okay, so space is a claim by science. Okay, I'm not the only one making this claim, but the Bible and science both claim that there was an expansion of space because God had to make room for the stars. And so that expansion into an invisible realm, we know it's an invisible realm because the CMBR is an equal measurement across the entire cosmos, and that proves that there's no expansion currently happening because it's equal.
Okay, let me ask you a question. So if science is saying that there's an expansion of matter in space, and the Bible makes some reference to the expansion of matter or space, how do we link those two things together? Could the Bible be wrong, be onto something by accident? Could the Bible be referring to something else? How do we make that link? How do we go, this is some sort of evidence of something?
Okay, I'm referring to in the Bible, when God created the earth and the water, the seas, and there was no atmosphere, okay, then he had to make an atmosphere and a heavens. He had to make the heavens in order to cast the stars into the sky. Okay. So he had to make an expansion. And
David, I don't think you understood my question. So let's say hypothetically that the Bible said that DNA is like a double helix structure. Okay. It doesn't. There's nothing remotely that clear in the Bible related to anything scientific. But let's say it did. Let's say the Bible accurately described the structure of DNA. How would we go from there to that is evidence for God?
Well, I'm not trying to discuss DNA as evidence for God. I'm trying to claim the expansion of space as the evidence for God. So I don't want to get diverted down that road. I'm claiming that the expansion of space into a realm that didn't exist. Because if you say expansion, Kenneth, right, you were saying that something got bigger.
Okay, so if the Bible says space got bigger and science is indicating that space got bigger and these two things seem to line up with each other, how do we go from there to saying these things seem to be in agreement with each other to proof of God?
Also, can you give us a verse that talks about the expansion, just for reference?
Okay. All right, Matt. In the first 3 days of creation, God said, "Let there be light."
I asked for a verse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I asked for a verse.
I don't have the precise verse. It's in chapter 1.
Why did you call with proof of God, citing cosmology in the Bible, and you don't even have verses ready to go to talk about the expansion? If you say the Bible talks about expansion, at a minimum, you should be able to pull up like something from Isaiah 40. But
We got stretching out the heavens and all that.
Yeah.
No, I'm only going by Genesis 1, and you guys are aware of Genesis.
Genesis 1 does not have the word expansion in it.
But it does say, "Let there be light."
Okay.
And in order for
David, you said the Bible talks about expansion. You say you're only using Genesis 1. I say that Genesis 1 doesn't include the word expansion, and your response is to say it does say "let there be light." Well, "let there be light" is not expansion. If you can't put together an argument that is coherent, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean, other people, wait a minute, David. There are other people who could have called in to talk about the Bible talking about expansion. I already gave you one reference in Isaiah 40. There's another one in Isaiah 42. And these metaphorical language about God spreading out the heavens is there, and it is interpreted by some as predicting the expansion. The problem is, even if you'd had cited those verses, that wouldn't prove either that a God did expand. It would not prove that anybody knew about an expansion. And it doesn't demonstrate that what the Bible's talking about is consistent with what we find within the cosmology as we understand it in science. But you're doing worse than that, because you're saying, I'm only going to point to this book of the Bible, which doesn't talk about expansion, and I'm going to pretend that it does. And that doesn't interest me, because that's not a good argument or an honest one.
Well, first off, Matt, I never claimed I was going to prove the Bible. I just said I was going to prove a heaven and a creator.
But you're referencing the Bible as part of your proof, man.
I didn't ask you to, David, I didn't ask you to prove the Bible. I asked you to make to defend the argument that you're making. And you're saying that the Bible talks about expansion and that this proves that there's a God. Well, you're absolutely wrong. The Bible can talk about a million things, including that there are beasts of the field. And then you could go point at the beasts of the field and say, look, the Bible's right. Yes, the Bible's right. There are beasts of the field, but that doesn't prove a God. And when you say that the Bible talks about expansion, and then when I ask you for a verse, you say it says, let there be light, I no longer think that you are actually serious, because nothing about this is a coherent argument at all.
Yeah, because like whether or not you understand cosmology or not, it's sort of irrelevant. I mean, what you're doing would be like if a detective saw like there was a suspect drove away from a crime scene in a blue Honda, and I have a blue Honda, therefore I'm the criminal who did the thing.
It's worse. It's worse because what you're doing is saying a suspect drove away in a blue Honda, and I found a guy in a red Honda.
I think somebody's being dishonest about wanting evidence because you won't let me give it.
Well, okay, so evidence necessarily is something that can be used to demonstrate that a claim is true. What we're asking you is how to do that. How is what you're presenting, how could it possibly be used to demonstrate that the claim a God exists is true? Where's the link?
Okay, let's forget all about the Bible. Let's go with the Big Bang Theory. It claims expansion, right?
Okay.
Okay, this is science. Okay, I'm not one that appeals to authority because I'm not an authority, but I'm pretty
Jesus Christ, you don't even after explaining appeals to authority, you get it wrong again.
Matt, I'm just trying to give you evidence.
No, you're not. No, you're not, David. You're trying to waste my time. I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop talking. And then I want you to actually give a single piece of evidence and explain how it demonstrates there's a God. Can you do that or not?
Yes, I'm trying to do that, Matt. Thank you.
You're not trying to do that. When I stop talking, do it. I'm done talking.
Okay. The Big Bang claims expansion. Okay. Expansion means something gets bigger. And if something gets bigger, that means that space is being created. And if space is being created into other areas that are not physical, that means that is an invisible realm into which the cosmos is now expanding. And if that is an invisible realm, okay, it's not physical. It's not subject to any metaphysics or laws of physics. It is an invisible supernatural realm where space is created. And if space is created in that invisible realm, then that means that something is happening that is counter to science and physics, that something is being created out of nothing in an invisible realm that is not subject to physics. And that means since there's creation in an invisible realm that is not subject to physics, that there is also a creator, because inanimate matter or space cannot be created by itself. The cosmos is not pantheistic.
You're done, David.
It cannot create itself.
David, listen to me. I took notes and I jotted down your entire argument. So first of all, Big Bang cosmology.
That's not my entire argument.
Hang on, I'm muting you, David.
Trust me, your argument's fucking done. Now shut up and listen.
You're muted, so just listen, David.
Big Bang cosmology is the current best explanation we have for the origin of the universe. And when it talks about space expanding, we have no idea what, if anything, it's expanding into. An infinite, endless nothing. You have taken that and made it a conclusion that space is being created. That's not what Big Bang cosmology says. It doesn't say that space is being created. It says that space is expanding. Things are getting further and further apart, etc. But you are declaring that space is expanding into areas that are not physical. You don't know that. You don't have any way to demonstrate. You then call it an invisible realm. You don't know that. You don't have any way to demonstrate it. You then say it's not a physical realm. You don't know that. You don't have any way to demonstrate it. And then you say that space is being created. That's not necessarily true. And then you say that if something is creating space, there must be a creator. But even if all of that were true, right up to that last line that says there must be a creator, what we're talking about is there must be some explanation for the expansion of the universe. And even if there were space being, air quotes, created, that doesn't mean that there is a God doing the creation. You haven't demonstrated that there's anything other than naturalistic explanations for this. So we've taken the foundations of science, and you have turned that on its head and argued for things that no scientist would advocate for, no cosmologist would agree on. You are just saying, hey, if the universe is getting bigger, it must be expanding into something. And that means there must be a God who's making space for the universe to expand into. However, that's not a sound argument. You have not demonstrated any evidence for it. You have fallaciously concluded that because you and scientists do not have an explanation for the expansion, therefore, argument from ignorance, there must be a God doing it. Your argument is flawed at every conceivable level. It is fractally wrong.
Yeah. And this is an amazing opportunity because I muted you so you could just really listen. So I'm going to unmute you and we're going to run a test here. If you were listening and are able to respond to what Matt was saying, then we're having something called a conversation. If not, then we're going to drop it and move on to other callers. So I'm going to unmute you right now.
Hello?
Hi, David. Were you listening to Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your response?
It's demonstrably false, everything Matt said.
Okay, goodbye.
All right. See you, David. All right.